there probably aren't many brides who are happy about living in a two-generation home, especially with a monster for a mother-in-law. Exit investigations, and my case, not only my mother-in-law, but even my husband didn't give me any option other than living in a two-family home. Moreover, he was secretly planning something outrageous. I'll crush that plan. I'm Alyssa, a 35-year-old living in a moderately urban area. My husband, Miles, is 38 years old and works for a mid-sized company, and we don't have any children. We live in a rental apartment, but the problem is that it's poorly constructed. This is due to Miles being 167 centimeters tall, out of shape, and weighing over 80 kilograms. His footsteps make loud thumping sounds when he walks. Because of this, we have received complaints from the neighbors on both sides and the people living below us numerous times. Third time, I apologize on behalf of Miles and even go as far as to ask him to lose weight. However, he gets upset and retorts, "Don't talk to me about that when I'm tired from work." He continues to stomp around angrily, making even more noise. I've talked to Miles many times about renting a well-soundproofed apartment or a detached house, but he never shows any interest. He likes the fact that his commute to work is convenient and that it only takes 10 minutes by car to reach the lively downtown area, so he's unwilling to consider moving. One night, a somewhat intimidating young man from downstairs visited again to complain loudly. As I was bowing my head in apology, Miles, who had been drinking and was already tipsy, popped his head out from the living room and shouted at the man, "You're the one making more noise." As a result, the man, who seemed accustomed to fights, completely silenced Miles, and I ended up apologizing while groveling. After the man left, Miles kept yelling in frustration, but as I tended to his injuries, he seemed to sober up and suddenly became timid, saying, "Maybe we should move out of this place." Seizing the opportunity, I started searching for alternatives from the next day. My biggest hope was to buy a detached house, but my husband has to repay my university scholarship, and searching for a place in his preferred area is way out of our budget. On the other hand, the rent for a 30-year-old house is over $1,000 a month, which is also difficult for us. As I worried about it, my mother-in-law suddenly called, "I heard about your situation from Miles. Leave that dangerous place right away." So Miles, always saying unnecessary things. I must say, my mother-in-law is the type of person who always wants things her way and supports my husband more than me. Before we got married, I was earning almost the same amount as my husband at a major company, but she ordered me, "How dare you, as a woman, be so insolent? When you get married, give up your job and take..."
How dare you, as a woman, be so insolent? When you get married, give up your job and take good care of my son. That's right, that's good enough with a satisfied look, absolutely frustrating me. Wondering what she would say this time, I felt anxious when I replied, "Yes, I think so too, but it's challenging to find a suitable place."
Miles even agreed with her, and now I'm doing clerical work from home, receiving less than a third of my previous salary. When she found out, my mother-in-law said, "That's right, that's good enough with a satisfied look," absolutely frustrating me.
It's only about $300 more than our current rent.
That's right, that's good enough with a satisfied look, absolutely frustrating me. Wondering what she would say this time, I felt anxious when I replied, "Yes, I think so too, but it's challenging to find a suitable place."
She started saying something outrageous again.
What are you on about? You should just live with us.
Well, I was about to refuse, but I was dumbfounded by my mother-in-law's words.
Miles fully supports it. Come here this weekend and let's discuss the details. Then this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. I'll be waiting for your visit, before she hung up the phone.
Don't panicking. I sent a message to Miles, but there was no reply. I tried calling once I'd finished work, but there was no answer. He came back close to 11 p.m. drunk. "Hey, didn't read my email?" I couldn't help but shout, and he responded, "What's your problem? We can live in a newly built house. Isn't that good enough for you? Hey, but your parents' house is over 40 years old and pretty run down, right? What? Didn't you hear from Mom? We're going to build a two-generation house. I didn't hear anything. Dad and Mom will provide the down payment and the rest will be on us. We'll take out a loan in both our names." Wait a second, what do you mean will be? It seems that up until just a moment ago, he was with his parents discussing the loan without me. I can't believe he'd run ahead with this plan with just his parents, leaving me behind.
The rough estimate is that the monthly repayment will be a little over $1,000. It's only about $300 more than our current rent.
No, that $300 is a big deal. How does he plan to come up with that? I was at my wit's end. My father-in-law, at least, is different, but once my mother-in-law and husband make up their minds, they won't budge no matter what.
If you take on more work from home, couldn't you manage an extra $300?
My job mainly involves document input, and as a part-timer, if there's no work, there's no pay. No matter how much I want money, work doesn't always come pouring in. I've explained my job countless times, but they just don't seem to understand. And the fact that they roughly know the monthly payment amount means the discussions are quite far along, right? Moreover, my husband, who had been so against moving, suddenly wants to return to his parents' home, and that feels off to me too. It's true that the big fight with the man from downstairs is a significant reason, but I'm really worried that they're easily accepting the idea. There is a significant reason, but I'm really worried that they're easily accepting the idea that we will be responsible for the majority of the payments in the two-generation house. I have a bad feeling about this, and I'm getting really scared about visiting my in-laws this weekend. When I visit my husband's parents' house at the weekend, my mother-in-law greets me with a smile and says, "The man placed the blueprint in front of me and began explaining the 3 types of two-generation homes." My mother-in-law greets me with a smile and says, "Let's live together in a two-generation home." We even have a salesperson come here to discuss it with us, showing how thoroughly she's planned it by calling a representative from a major housing company. The man placed the blueprint in front of me and began explaining the 3 types of two-generation homes. A separate type where everything like the kitchen and bathroom is duplicated, a shared type where only some areas are shared between the 2 families, and an integrated type where the entire living space is used by both families together. Initially, I preferred the separate type, or at the very least the shared type, but to my surprise, my mother-in-law and husband wanted the integrated type. Living together like that will make us get along better. Besides, it'll save a lot on construction costs.
Well, saving on construction costs might be good. I don't want to get along with my mother-in-law, or rather, I doubt it's even possible.
Also, the integrated type is more convenient for raising children, right? I'll take good care of them.
Raising children? My husband and I had given up on having children after several years of infertility struggles. I had explained this to my mother-in-law, yet she mentioned raising children. Something's definitely not right.
Seeing me fall silent, Miles hurriedly said, "Well, maybe there's a chance we can have them in the future," as if trying to deceive them.
It's true that I can't say it's impossible, and if we were to raise children, it might be more convenient to do it with the help of the grandparents. However, even if considering whether to live in a two-generation house, there was a significant problem with this in-laws home. The smartphone signal was very poor. Our calls would often drop, and there would be a lot of static on the line. The cause seemed to be that the in-laws' house was surrounded by large buildings. Furthermore, there is an old rumor that electromagnetic waves from mobile phones were harmful to health. Nowadays, mobile phones are manufactured in compliance with proper safety standards, so there is no truth to that. Still, my mother-in-law believes it, and so she has no intention of improving the signal. But that's a big problem for me. My data entry work often comes with tight deadlines, and I'm usually frantically entering data while receiving instructions and asking questions on my smartphone. My company provides the phone and covers the expenses, and the calls can last up to 30 minutes for one task. So not having a reliable smartphone connection and having to use the landline for calls would be very inconvenient in terms of call charges as well. However, neither my mother-in-law nor my husband understood the seriousness of the situation at all, since they don't use smartphones much at home. The seriousness of the situation at all. Their attitude was like, "So what if it doesn't connect?" But I couldn't back down here. Hey, if we move here, I won't be able to do my current job. That means we won't be able to pay the mortgage. Living together here is just not possible. I appealed to Miles. Then Miles clicked his tongue. The two-generation house they planned to build would be under both my husband's and my name, and we would each pay our own separate loans. According to my husband, this way we could receive double the housing loan deduction, resulting in a larger tax reduction. However, there was actually another reason behind it. I was surprised that they had decided on such a thing without my input, but on the other hand, if I didn't agree, the contract couldn't proceed. So, ignoring Miles' toot of disapproval, I stubbornly haggled and managed to put this discussion on hold for the time being. I, for one, hoped that the whole discussion would be scrapped. There's no way I could work in an environment with poor smartphone reception, and I also wanted to avoid living with my mother-in-law. However, contrary to my wishes, my mother-in-law and husband kept going on with the conversation. They said things like, the in-laws' room will be on the sunny second floor, and we'll install an elevator, considering future caregiving or wheelchair use, and the kitchen, bathroom, and toilet will be on the first floor. Hold on a second, an elevator. When I looked it up, I found out that a home elevator costs around $20,000 to $30,000, and they were slyly taking the second floor for themselves, with the kitchen, toilet, and bathroom on the first floor, which would mean using the elevator multiple times daily, leading to increased electricity costs and annual maintenance expenses. I couldn't imagine that my in-laws would cover those costs. In fact, when I asked Miles, he replied, "We'll use it too, so let's pay for it ourselves." Why does he ignore my wishes like that? I got angry and stopped talking to Miles, and his already late-night returns home got even later. At first, I thought he might be going to his parents' house, but I found out through a phone call that that wasn't the case. My mother-in-law continued to come to our house almost every day. Why do you hate the idea of living with us so much? Are you deliberately refusing to live with us? That's right. When you have kids, my mother will take care of them. I keep telling you that I can't work if my smartphone doesn't connect, and there are various other problems too, right? With a determined mindset. I resisted the pressure from my mother-in-law and husband, refusing to give in. Suddenly, my mother-in-law went to the kitchen and brought back a bowl filled with water. I had a bad feeling about her actions as I watched her movements. She marched right into my room and exclaimed, "Then I'll do this." She poured the bowl of water directly onto my computer, which I use for work. I was dumbfounded, and she said, "Without your computer, you can't do your data entry work, right? Well, you can find a different job here. Anyway, hurry up and sign the contract." I pushed my mother-in-law away from the computer and immediately checked it. It wouldn't turn on at all. "You did it, didn't you?" I glared at my mother-in-law and said, "This is a computer provided by my company. Moreover, they bought it specifically for me, and it cost over $1,500. How are you going to make up for this?" Then my mother-in-law turned pale and said, "Well, what? I just stumbled a little, and the water accidentally spilled. I don't know anything about it." She yelled and tried to make a quick escape. It's not going to end that easily. I caught my mother-in-law and turned to face Miles, showing him the divorce papers with a smile. "Let's get a divorce. It's much better to get divorced right now than to live with such a mother-in-law." I had never brought up the topic of divorce before, so both Miles and my mother-in-law were shocked. "Wait a minute, what are you saying all of a sudden? We haven't even signed the contract yet." "Oh, really? So you're saying it's okay to get divorced once we sign the contract?" "No, that's not." Miles stammered and I confronted him. "I already know everything. You plan to make the two-generation house in both our names, have me pay half of the loan, and then get divorced, right? Because Lucille called me?" When I suddenly mentioned Lucille's name, Miles turned pale. "Your cute woman named Lucille, and she was even pregnant with his child." Yes, according to her. Miles told her. "Well, why would she tell you something like that?" Miles said in a state of panic, but I continued. "No wonder you suggested putting the property in both our names. By having the property in both our names and arranging the loan separately, even if we divorce, you can make me pay for the portion I took. The tricky part about sharing the loan is that even if the named parties divorce, it doesn't exempt either of them from the payment. Moreover, housing loans are excluded from property distribution, so while some of my payment could be offset by alimony, it would never become zero." After saying that, I looked at my mother-in-law, who avoided my gaze, and said, "It's because Alyssa won't give us grandchildren." As expected, my mother-in-law also knew about Lucille and the child, and they were planning to bring Lucille and the child into this house. "Oh, is that Sue? It's all my fault then? But before you rush to sign the two-generation house loan contract, you wouldn't want us to get divorced, would you?" When I said that, both my mother-in-law and Miles looked down and bit their lips. I handed the divorce papers to Miles and said, "If you don't agree to a divorce, then you can't marry Lucille. She already terminated her apartment lease at the end of this month. She said she wanted to move into our family home soon and make various requests for the two-generation house. If I don't divorce you, I'll continue living in the apartment rented under your name, and your mistress will settle comfortably in your family home. You'll be tight on money, and most importantly, it won't look good in society, right?" After saying that, the two of them started to panic, and in the end, Miles reluctantly signed the divorce papers. I kept it a secret that Lucille said, I'll definitely push that old hag into living on the poorly lit first floor. But that's fine, right? Schlitz, afterwards, I heard from the neighbors that after divorcing me, Miles got married to Lucille, but due to Lucille's strong opposition to living under the strict smartphone rules, their plans for building a two-generation house fell through. However, the young girlfriend couldn't tolerate living in the over 40-year-old family house, and my ex-mother-in-law was also dissatisfied with being burdened with the baby. There was a battle between my ex-mother-in-law and Lucille almost every day. But fuck, Lucille left with the child. Numbo. I heard that Miles is in a state of mental distress, unable to sleep at night due to the Alimony property division he has to pay me, the living expenses claimed by Lucille during the separation, the divorce lawsuit initiated by her, and the child support he'll probably have to bear. On Lucille's side, she seems to be feeling pressured by my Alimony claim and is apparently urging Miles to pay it. As for my ex-mother-in-law, she's planning to make Miles shoulder the cost of the company-provided computer that she poured water over and destroyed. Listen, I heard that a real estate agency branded car often stops by the in-laws' house, so they're probably planning to sell it. Tough luck. Concurrently, I am temporarily staying at my parents' house and have been able to switch from a part-time job to a full-time position. I am working hard, and I am fully committed to my job. Recently, I have become friends with a male colleague who also went through a divorce and has a child. I am gradually getting closer to his child as well. I hope that someday we can become a family of 3. It's a dream I hold dear,